How are you?
Bearing up under the strain. What and how are you and where are you?
Right. So first of all, Bear Grylls. It's really nice to meet you. That's as much as I can as everything that I've learned about you online. It's like you're our own local South African Bear Grylls. So I'm in Melbourne. I'm about I don't know, a few hours swim from where you are.
Yes, I've been to Melbourne. It's a very full place.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, we're not quite in Melbourne itself. We're more towards the east. So I'm in Mornington area, probably a little bit closer to you than anyone else
Yeah,
based
you
in
can take
Melbourne.
a kayak across.
Yes, well, I've kayaked. I've kayaked quite a bit. I've got a Hobie, and I really love that thing. And not too long ago, I kayaked from Crib Point all the way across to Phillip Island, which is about a 6, 7
Mm.
kilometer trek, which it was wonderful. It's great.
Well, people do the kayak across. They go from the Mornington and from the stick out bit. And what's the name of the thing I'm thinking of?
Is it Nepean?
Yeah, probably. Anyway, they go from the closest point across to Deal Island and then across from there to Flinders,
Oh, we lost you.
and then across from there to Cape Barren, and then on to Tasmania.
Right.
Yeah,
With and how far is Flinders Island? Now, just for the Oorsee audience, there's because obviously
yeah,
there's more than one Flinders Island. This one is between the mainland and Tasmania. How far off the coast is it?
right. We're probably 40 kilometers off the coast.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
It takes about a three-quarters of an hour flight from Launceston, or you can come across on the ferry, which comes once a week and takes about 14, 15 hours. As I say, I live in fairy lands.
Is there a ferry that leaves from Melbourne area to Flinders Island?
Yeah, once in a while, there's one from oh, you, further east than you guys. There's a little harbour there, and there's one that comes across once in a blue moon, but it's pretty unpredictable.
Yeah,
It's for
yeah,
shipping cattle, really.
yeah.
We do a lot. The island is quite large. It's about the size of Barbados,
Yes.
um, and it's doesn't have a very large population, about 1,000 people, and they're scattered about the island. So my area would, I'd say we've got a population of about zero point 0.2 people per square mile.
Wow. Sure.
Yeah.
Now,
You
you
don't
are
want to see neighbors
obviously
you don't.
you are from South Africa originally. Now,
Yes.
let's do it this way. Tell us a bit about your upbringing and your history. Where in South Africa are you from, and what sparked the decision to move abroad?
I I'm originally from Durban. I was sent to school in Bloemfontein.
Ah,
So um, I married a girl from Cape Town, and we ended up, because I was a fisheries scientist, living just about all over South Africa. And then once I started selling books, because that's what I do, I'm an author.
yes.
Um, I then had enough money to go and live near where we sent the kids to school, which was Mooi River. Um,
Did you Mooirivier?
yeah.
Wow, my wife was there in school. That's interesting.
Okay. Which school?
Well, I think it's Mooirivier Primary or something. I need to ask her. She's
Uh,
sitting in there.
Okay. Um, yeah. My kids were at Treverton, which goes through to senior school.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So when they were at uni, we had a couple of fairly nasty farm invasion
Mm,
situations.
I understand.
We'd bought a small farm there, 12 acres, so it was not really a farm, um, but a couple of farms away from us. And I said to Bob's, I think things could eventually come right here, but
Mm,
might be after we're dead. And she said, well, I'm staying here forever. Um, I'm very happy here. If you really want to leave, off you go. I said, oh, you know, when you get into one of these arguments, the right way is not to push things hard.
mm,
Say, uh, well, I said, look, I've got two conferences coming up, uh, writers' conferences, one in New Zealand and one in Australia. Why don't you come across and have a look and see? I mean, now been to several conferences in the US,
yeah.
and I mean, they couldn't have been nicer to us. And likewise, it couldn't have been more of a culture shock. You
Yes.
know, I found my American friends were very good to us.
Mm.
I enjoyed visiting them. I found it really very strange. And the
Americans are
same,
weird. Sorry.
yeah,
They are
well,
great. They're
it's a
great.
huge country with a lot of people. You can always find some people you're going to get on with.
Oh, absolutely.
And
And
I
I
found
know
the
a couple of South Africans that lives there.
I found
And
the
they,
Texans are probably the ones I find easiest to get on with
yes.
because it's a
Mm.
big, wide open place.
Yeah, and
But
that's
I
why
mean,
lots of South Africans goes to Texas
yeah,
for farming and working on there.
and I mean, we'd obviously been across to Europe a couple of times and England, and man, I always feel like I'm breathing secondhand air
Yeah.
because there's
Yeah.
so many people there, and I don't deal with people close on my sandwiches. Um, so yeah, I said, right, well, let's go and have a look. And we went to Australia, stayed, did a conference there, went across to New Zealand, drove around South Island, and by the time we were kind of halfway up South Island, she said, these people are not that different. I could actually cope with living here.
Yep.
Um, the sense of humor is the same. You know, I don't have to explain everything I say. Um, they're nice people. Oh, I'm winning, but troop still. Um, and then we came across to Australia, and I wanted to see Tasmania because
Yeah.
it was colder and sort of wilder than a lot of other parts.
Mm.
And I like cold places, so
Yeah.
but yeah, that might suit me. And while I'd been doing my homework, I spotted Flinders Island and doing a property search. It happened to be the cheapest piece of property that day in Tasmania. I thought, man, it's got to be a mine dump or a disaster area, but I'll have a look. And I found, yeah, no, really beautiful place, great rock climbing, very
Yeah.
good fishing. And, I've got one son who's a very keen rock climber and one son who's a very keen fisherman and diver.
Yeah.
I do both. Uh, I thought, well, I used to hate going to see my dad in the city, so maybe if I could live somewhere that wasn't in a city, the
Yeah.
kids could enjoy visiting me instead of having it as a duty, and I could enjoy it too. Um, so we traveled around Tasmania a bit, and then we flew across to Flinders Island on this little six-seater plane. I got to sit next to the pilot. Man, he
Wow.
was brave, sitting next to me. Um, anyway, so we landed here, and my wife got off the plane. She said, "Yeah, literally, she put two steps on the tarmac and she said, well, this is where we're coming to." And I've been married a long time now, and I've learned one useful piece of advice that I give to all young men. It's when you've won an argument, stop fighting, just say, yes, dear.
Yes. Yes, that
Anyway,
is prob and on that note, that's the end of the interview.
yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Now, gosh, you summarized it all really well, but the research I've done about you is you really did the long yards just to get where you are today. I mean,
Yeah.
is it something like 79 times you've submitted your first copy before it was
Yeah.
accepted for publishing?
76, I think. Yeah.
76.
Um, I had written by that stage something close to 5 million words. You can do a bit of maths here. About
Yeah,
100,000 words to a normal novel, anywhere between 80,000 and
yeah,
120,000. So I'd written quite a lot by then, and I just kept submitting and trying. And my God, from South Africa, it was a hard yard. I
yeah,
didn't know anybody in the business. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I should do. Books I could find were pretty amateurish
yeah.
and out of date. Um, they kept asking you to send return postage, and then you've got to try and get postage in foreign places. I won one competition in South Africa, and they promised publication, but it just never happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I just kept trying. Sheer bloody mindedness. Obstinacy is my middle name, my friend.
Well, you did.
Hardcore.
Well, you obviously did pretty well.
Mm,
Now here's the thing, right? You are this. Let me call you a wild man, wild civilized man. You like love all the extreme stuff, and I love those things too. Diving, fishing,
yeah.
rock climbing, probably not so much because I'm not very good at it, but it's something that I definitely will try. I love hiking. Now, how does those that if I build a character around those traits, I'm not going to picture you as a sci-fi writer or a steampunk writer or a cyberpunk writer. What, where did the
Science
love
fiction
for
writer.
those? Where did the love
Um,
for those stories come from?
man, that's a long story. Um, it came from my mother, and my mother, for the sort of record, was a De La Rey. Um,
Right.
right, yeah, and because she was about as obstinate and inclined to do everything differently as you can imagine, she volunteered in World War II to join the army, and she was my. I have this thing I can say. My mother was on Robben Island. My mother really was on Robben Island. She was manning naval artillery guns.
Wow.
Anyway,
So
and
is she directly related to General de la Rey?
yeah, great niece.
Great niece.
Yeah,
Wow. That is amazing.
yeah,
I've
um,
I've interviewed quite a few famous people, and one of those people are like Bok van Blerk. I don't know
yeah,
if you know who he is. He
yeah,
wrote
yeah,
the
yeah.
song. Yes.
I know your
I
song.
interviewed him a couple of weeks back. You can find that video on the channel. And yeah. So you obviously know the history of his hit single. And he
Mm,
just released another single called Ik ben der Afrikaner, which is Dutch for Ek is een Afrikaner. I am an African. It
yeah,
was a story about the first Dutch person who called himself an African, because yeah, something to do with the British wanting to arrest him. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Continue.
yeah. And some Americans had come across to do some work on, I think, probably the radar systems or whatever, and they'd left a couple of science fiction pulp novels behind.
Hmm.
And my mother picked them up and read them. And so she introduced the whole family to these bloody off the wall books. And, so I kind of grew up in among science fiction and fantasy books in the house.
Yeah.
Um, it never occurred to me that this wasn't normal. You
Well,
assume your parents are normal, and my parents were anything but normal. But, so there I was reading this stuff. And the first one I happened to pick up when I was about, 10 years old, 8, 9 years old, was out of my reach really, but it was all about a water world where this ship had crashed and the survivors had to cope with living on floating seaweed. You know,
Oh,
there was no, and it was all this problem solving and dealing with the wildlife and dealing with society and the problems and things.
yeah,
And I just absolutely loved this, because this was right up my alley, living on the sea and
yeah,
doing all this kind of outdoorsy type thing. And yeah, so I found it was a kind of genre I could enjoy. So most of my science fiction and fantasy tends to be not exactly urban. It's
yeah.
exploring strange places and civilizations.
Well, I'm a science fiction fan. I need to whisper it because the Oorsee audience might judge me and unsubscribe. But I am, and I've pretty much soaked up everything. And gosh, I can't even really tell you where it came from. It's probably just from a young age trying to escape whatever my situation was at the time. But I soaked up things like obviously Star Trek and that stuff, which I grew up with. But then Stargate came out, and I was probably the biggest Stargate fan at the time, even though some of those aliens spoke better English than the people from Earth. But but then later on down the line, obviously the sci-fi got better, and I got introduced to things like Expanse, which I'm actually a huge fan of the Expanse series. I'm still trying to work my way through the books. Morgan, on the other hand, would tell me, nope, nope, there's better out there. I tried to have this discussion with him, but yeah, I am a huge fan, so I'm definitely gonna. I looked for one of your books on Apple Books today. I couldn't find it, so we're gonna put some of those
They're
links.
mostly Amazon.
Amazon. All right. Well, we're gonna put
Yeah,
those links in the description for
yeah.
those users that want to go read a bit
Um,
more.
the one that's just won this Prometheus
Yes,
Award.
I was getting
Um,
to that one. Sorry, what is the reward called?
the Prometheus. Prometheus was the guy who stole fire from the gods in
That's
Greek
right.
religion and gave it to mankind.
Cloud Castles.
Yeah,
Is that the
and
one?
yeah, so that one is one which I think should appeal to quite a lot of South
Yeah,
Africans.
Cloud
Um,
Castles.
the
Well,
other
we'll
one that
link
I
we'll
would
link that
say
one.
good is uh, I wrote one about the island basically called Changelings Island, where I've got a young kid who gets himself into trouble as teenage kids do, shoplifting
Yeah.
um, in Melbourne, and gets sent home to the island where his grandmother lives, where he's never been, and he's
Wow.
come from a big urban environment, and he's got to fit into this extremely rural um, farming community. And I mean, at first he just absolutely hates it. And then he starts to realize that here he's a man among equals, if you know what I mean. He's got
Yes.
an
Yes.
affinity with the sea. He can do things. Um, Melbourne was a big place and he was a small individual.
Yeah.
This is a small place and he becomes a huge individual
Yeah.
and, you know, learns his way around and becomes, accepts responsibilities and um,
Love it. And which book is that?
things like that. It's called Changelings Island.
Changelings
It's,
Island. Oh, okay. So I've
yeah,
got Slow
it's a,
Train, which Changelings Island. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna link that one in there as well. Now tell me,
yeah,
you've
it's,
been
it's a, it's a young adult one,
yeah,
but that one was a finalist in the Dragon Awards.
the Dragon.
The,
I've actually seen
yeah.
that when I did my research. Now, speaking of research, you said you've been happily married for so long. Have your wife actually read your Wikipedia page? Because yeah, it needs an age restriction,
I
really.
didn't write the Wikipedia page, and I try not to look at this.
Here's my favorite line. I need to reread it for you. Now, I actually summarized all of this, but it said, after a stint in boarding school, where he learned smoking strong drink in the pursuit of wild women. He was conscripted at the age of 17 to the army. Now,
Yeah, that's
she's
about
not
accurate.
listening, is she?
Yeah, I only met her once I came out of the army, and I met her on a cliff.
On a cliff,
Yeah, she abseiled down the cliff. It was
right?
the first time that she'd ever come climbing, and she came down, and I was standing at the bottom, and she was very nervous, and I said, "If you fall, I'll catch you,"
Oh.
and I did, but she
So
didn't.
she said to you, if you fall, she'll catch you.
No, I said to her, I was
Apology.
at the bottom. She was being lowered down the cliff.
Right. Apologies. Because when you said you were so nervous, I figured, no, no, you're the one going down.
Uh,
Yeah. Anyway,
I,
so
I was just nervous because it was a girl who climbed cliffs. Well,
yeah. Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Now, besides being a celebrated author, you're also quite the accomplished rock climber, like you just said, chef,
mm,
wine taster, and fly fisher, and you love diving. I love most of those things. I've pretty much dived everywhere where South Africa. I didn't dive in the UK when I was living over there. Why would you? But I dived over here quite a bit, and it's
mm.
just incredible how beautiful it is down there. And well, I wouldn't say it's quiet, but it's peaceful. And those are two different things, if you
And
know what I
say,
mean.
you've got the sound of your um, mouthpiece there. Yeah,
And the
here,
clams,
here I dive on hooker, which is surface piped air, so you can
right?
spend a long time down there. So if you ever get to the island, you're welcome. I'll take you out and give you a try with that.
I would
So you don't
love
have
it.
tanks. You don't have tanks on your back.
Right.
And the crayfish here get to they're very like the Cape crayfish,
Yeah.
but they get my record so far is 5 kilos.
5 kilos. How big was that thing?
Man, put it this way, I was wondering whether it was going to eat me or I was going to eat it.
Oh, oh, and now there's one thing. Now
Size of yeah,
I grew up in the Namakwaland, right? So always went to the west coast to dive Crayf,
mm,
and they were massive. I remember, and for me that was normal. They're supposed to be big. Then I went to Cape Town. I'm like, oh, hold on, what's wrong with these crayfish? They're not really that big. But one thing that was what's there were loads of them everywhere. So when you go down in Pringle and you find a good spot, there'll be like 20 or 30 of them sitting there all bundled together. So you can pick up the big ones and then go out. I tried catching crayfish in Melbourne. I just can't find them, but they're there but they're few and far between. But when you find one, oh gosh, they're huge. They're big.
yeah. Um, you know, the bottom line is you'll see many young crayfish, small crayfish, um, down on the east coast of Tassie,
Yeah,
particularly around Hobart and those cliffs there. Uh, Flinders, for some reason, the crayfish larvae, for want of a better word, planktonically drift in the current, and they come from elsewhere. So we actually provide the breeding stock for the east coast.
right.
And yeah, our crayfish stocks are coming from you guys in Victoria.
It's all the ones
So
I can't catch.
yeah, but that means that once again we are just one little spot of 52 little islands um, in the middle of nowhere. So we don't catch all that many larvae coming past. So
Yeah,
the crays that live here are scattered, but they're living in a hyperabundant food situation. So they grow really big and fast.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, you might have to spend, I mean, um, my dive partner and I would often spend 20 minutes and not see a crayfish underwater,
yeah,
Um, and we'd go out for a diving session and yeah, we'd bring back our bag,
yeah,
but we would have spent all day diving.
yeah. But then it's worth it because it's
Yeah.
food of the gods. That's what it is.
Mm.
Now,
And I mean,
you
yeah, the abalone are reasonable,
yeah,
and I spear fish as well. So
I, I,
I
spe
mean,
I speared a bit, but I really struggle with my eyesight underwater. My wife actually treated me with all the gear and all of that. And Morgan, I actually went.
mm,
He was selling a armchair on Facebook Marketplace because he was moving to France. I got to his house and I left with all his diving gear, with furniture, with kitchen stuff, and I don't know what all I took. I don't even think I took the armchair at the end. Yeah, no, I took it, but he was just getting rid of everything because they were obviously
mm,
moving abroad. But you work in that industry, or have you now
I did,
retired
yes.
and just
I, I, I started off as chief scientist for the shark fishery, commercial shark fishery in the Western Cape.
right?
Um, did that for 4 years or so. Then went into fish farming, did that for about another 3 years, and wrote my first book and started trying to sell it. And eventually sold the first book. Because I was selling in US dollars,
Yeah.
it was quite good money, you know.
Mm.
And yeah, we just went on from there. Um, so yes, I have a background in that lot. My dad was Mr. Mate on a semi-commercial boat. He
Yes,
worked
I read
here
that
in
online.
harbour. Yeah, and so I kind of grew up around it all the time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can still remember as a little kid him coming home with a strip sock uh, of fish,
yeah,
about 100 pounds of fish, and me having to. They had this little crate, wooden crate, because I couldn't reach the sink,
yeah,
and I started off. I was only allowed to scale fish, and
yeah.
then gradually, I was allowed to gut fish and um, fillet fish and things like that. But yeah, so
Oh, I know
it's
my
very
my.
hard for me in some ways to go back to for people who've never done this kind of thing, and I've got to kind of explain it from the start
Yeah.
um, because I've always done it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no, it's amazing. I look, I grew up with a lot of the similar memories, obviously not to the extent that you have. My
yeah.
grandfather was in the police force, and when he retired, the first thing he bought was a boat, and he was so good at it. I mean, he could navigate that boat through the Cape Town harbor in mist, in like you can't see your hand in front of your face, but he what he did was, and it's really incredible. He listened to the count of the waves. And by listening to that, you can hear exactly where they break, and he knew where to point his boat, and he could make his way into the harbor. And it was truly incredible. And they would always just catch snook, and probably the few other like stembras or whatever they could get. But
Mm.
snook was the main target. If you catch snook here in Melbourne and you try and eat it, people think you're crazy.
Well, I catch snook here sometimes, and
There, yeah,
yeah,
I
I've
caught two
I've
the other
flecked,
day. I was so chuffed.
I've flecked them and smoked them.
Yeah,
Um, Smoking stuff has been once again I learned it from my dad. He
yeah.
used to smoke fish, and so yeah, I started smoking bacon and fish and yeah, all that kind of thing.
Dave, you're a real interesting guy, and I feel bad ending this call because
No
there's so
worries.
much moving parts. I mean, I found out you're related to General de Lara. You look like him, by the way. Then
No,
you're a sci-fi writer, which is
no.
so up my alley, and probably what I'm gonna go sit and do now is watch a little bit of Expanse. And then you spearfish, you dive, you fish, well, it's
Mm,
probably the same thing, and then you rock climb, you do all those things that I love. So I can just see us sitting and chatting for hours.
mm.
Just tell me something. Are you still writing? Is there something new coming
Yeah.
out?
Um, I'm basically continuously busy. I've got 3 books kind of going at the moment
Wow.
because that's what I do. Is I work on several books, and then one will just go with a run, and then I'll finish that one. Um, so I could talk to you about plots and things, but it's long and complicated. Let me rather let me rather say something about fitting in as a South African.
Yes, let's leave the Oorsee audience with that. But before we go, I want to pick your brain about writing because I'm a bit of a writer myself.
Right.
No, no.
Okay.
Well, let's go on with your advice for the
Um,
Oorsee audience about fitting in abroad.
you know, when we came here, the one thing I took to heart was that I had to learn a lot about the country I was going to.
Yes.
I didn't expect them to learn about me. I wanted to learn about them. So I joined the local volunteer ambulance service, um, because I was a medic in the army, so I knew a little bit about that. And I joined our local church. And in doing both of those, I just went along quietly and tried to learn a lot about the Australian people. And the reaction from that was that they in turn wanted to learn about me.
Yes.
And I found if I'd gone in there and said, my cooking is better than yours, my food is better than yours, my way of doing things is better than yours, I'm pretty sure I would have just made enemies. As it
I'm
was,
pretty sure
because
your
I
cooking
joined
is
in,
better than theirs.
who knows? But the funny thing about it is that I've ended up cooking far more Afrikaans food
Hmm,
than I ever did back in South Africa,
hmm,
because they keep saying, "Oh, won't you cook us something from South Africa?"
hmm.
And
Yes.
yeah, as I say, join your local associations. Don't try and be the queen bee. Just fit in, be helpful, um, show the good side of South Africa, and you'll find that they'll find the good side in you.
I like that. I've also been cooking a lot of South African, but because I miss the food and
Mm,
yeah, so we on the Oorsee app. So I don't know how much you know about Oorsee, but it's a social media app I built for South Africans that moves abroad. Because look, the idea about moving abroad is you need to start blending in with the locals. You're in their country, you need to learn their traditions. But it doesn't mean you need to completely let go of yours.
no,
Bearing in mind this is not the country where you're from, so obviously you need to give a little to get a little, like you just said.
exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And but
And if
because
you show willing, you'll find that people, especially in the rural areas, I don't know about big cities. I
yeah,
don't like cities much. Um, but in
neither do I.
rural areas, you know, I I find we have been so welcomed. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been here 15 years, and people tell me, you know more about this place than I do, you know, because I've tried to find out.
Yeah, I get the same thing. The Australians will still tell me I've traveled more in Australia than they did because I want to know more. Now, yeah, so the thing is, Australians are not looking to make friends with you as a South African that just moved over because they have their friends whom they grew up with.
Mm,
So the point of the app is to help you make friends with other expats that move abroad, and then through them connect into the local community. And it's been working really well. But for those that miss food, I actually compiled a whole list of recipes. I think I'm about, yeah, it's 24 recipes currently on there. It's the Oorsee cookbook, is what I call it. And it's on the app. Users can, there's a small fee attached to it because so I need to pay for the labor putting it together somehow. But I tend to spend a lot of time in it. And just this weekend, like 2 days ago, I made an oxtail potjie. Oh my goodness. I'm not even bragging. It was probably the best potjie ever made in mankind. It was so good. So yes, I probably cook mostly South African still at the moment.
well, getting oxtail here is very difficult, but I do my own shooting
Yeah.
because I've got a small farm,
Yes.
uh,
All right.
and um, wallaby are, well, they're a pest. They're
Yeah.
considered
True.
they're considered vermin. Yeah, and so I shoot a lot of wallaby, and that's our main protein,
Yeah.
meat thing. And yeah, I've made boerewors with wallaby and pork,
Yes.
and oxtail soup with wallaby tail.
You did. And
Yeah,
how did that
oxtail
taste?
stew. Oh, great! it doesn't have as strong a flavor as true oxtail,
Yes.
but it still makes an excellent oxtail. Yeah,
Can't I like ship a bag of frozen oxtail to you? Is that not allowed?
I don't know. I'm sure we can make a plan sometime.
Yeah. It's
Um,
like contraband. What are you smuggling? No, oxtail.
we um, how close are you to Essendon Airport?
It's about an hour down the road that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the flight from Essendon to Melbourne, we fly things to and fro that way.
We'll
And
we'll definitely make a plan. I don't have a
that's
problem with
cool.
that.
Yeah.
Now,
Um,
oh, sorry, you
anyway,
go.
you asked me, you wanted to ask about writing?
Yes, so I've published a few poems in a few different books during the years, and I sort of never see them, and then suddenly one day I'll stumble upon them. But I've always wanted to publish a story, and I'm busy writing two. But mind you, I've been writing it for the last 2 years. The one is a bit of a biography, and if any of the Oorsee audience wants to know, well, why on earth would you want to write a biography? You'd be surprised. But the other one is just a bit of a fiction story, like a detective story happening in the Johannesburg area about 20 years ago. Um, I guess what I want to know is like, when do you start getting someone with influence involved, like someone like Morgan, who has his own publishing company? When do you start telling him, but listen here, here's a couple of chapters. Do you want to maybe read this and tell me if it's any good? Or do you just keep
Or,
writing
or,
till it's
or
finished
first book when you finished.
when you're finished?
Um, Nobody's going to have the faith in you to say you will finish because so many people don't.
Yeah, no, I can
That's
imagine.
the grim
I just
reality
feel
of that
I
is
feel
that,
sometimes I need the inspiration from someone.
yeah,
Can you
I mean,
quickly read this?
the world's bottom drawers are full of half finished books.
Yeah, I can
You know,
imagine. I'm a bit concerned though with AI in the works now. I work closely with AI because I'm working IT in schools, and when AI came to be, they asked me, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to try and ban it? I said, no, you can't. You can't stop the flood. What we need to try and do is bring it into our daily curriculum and see how we can use it and how we as staff can make use of it. And then Microsoft did that for us by launching Copilot. Now, Copilot is very embedded into our email system and all of that. But it is very tempting to feed my whole chapter just to Copilot and say, fix all my grammar mistakes. But then what happens? I mean, it's
I
your
was going to say,
copyright is then,
yeah, your copyright becomes a bit fragile.
yeah,
Um, I think that what I mean, AI may replace me in the fullness of time, or I may simply become just a user thereof. But at the moment, I find predictive text gets me wrong 90% of the time. So
yeah,
obviously, my um, natural pattern is not their prediction.
exactly. And it's
Um,
very predictable. We can, we've trained ourselves at work. We can easily spot if a student has submitted work that's written by an AI.
yeah. So, I mean, it may improve beyond recognition.
Yeah.
And then, well, I've had a damn good run. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, you came in the perfect time of it. Me, on the other hand, I'm gonna struggle, but I'll do my. Yeah, well, I'm not gonna make use of it for that purpose at all. I do use it for coding when I program software. Each time when I do anything in AI, I always say thank you afterwards, just in case it takes over the world one day and wants to kill me, and then remembers, oh, hold on, he had manners. You
Yeah.
see,
Okay. It's worth including into a book sometime.
you're into sci-fi, so you should know Terminator, obviously.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Well, anything else you want to ask me about
No, no. I think
catfish? And
that was pretty. Look, I would love to talk to you about some of my stories in detail, but yeah, I think it needs a bit more
well,
work.
feel free to ask me questions. And one of the things, because I struggled so to start, and I just didn't.
Yeah,
There's so many things that if only I'd known then,
yes,
it saved me so much work. I I try to pay forward, um, get help other people along the way. Um, self-publishing has come on so far, especially if you've got a network like you obviously have.
I do,
Um,
yes. Yeah.
you probably don't need to fight your way through a publisher.
I'll still want a good eye on the book first. You know what? Because there's so many South African references in this one book I'm writing, I
Well,
think I'm going to send it to
and
you.
what you need is an editor, not a
Yes.
publisher.
Well, an editor. Yes. So I'll send it to you first, not Morgan. Forgive me, Morgan. Yes, I know you're born South African, but you're very Aussie. You eat your smashed avo and toast. We'll have kreef.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I I'm still working, as I say, on the regular production of biltong and
Yes.
um, biltong made with wallaby was different.
Oh yes, I can imagine.
Very good though.
Dave, thank you so much
Yep,
for your time. I've had a
no
wonderful
problem.
chat.
Yeah, tot
And
ziens.
tot ziens. I'm sure. Look, we can go at this for another hour, and
Yeah.
I'll have just as much fun. Um, thank you. Now, as far as interesting people go, I've spoken to a lot of people, and you are one of the top interesting people I've ever interviewed. Thank you for your time. I'm gonna put some editing behind this and just clear it up a bit, and then get that on the channel hopefully by tomorrow. And I'll send you a link as soon as it's done.
Cool. I'll be off to see the grandchild.
Yes, you'll be in Perth.
Yeah. No,
Well,
my kids, my cunning plan of being in a nice place so my kids would come to me isn't working too well.
well,
Because the downside is it's very expensive getting over here.
no, I can imagine. But I mean, going to Purfontein is like is going home.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, and you can
Um,
go have some of that oxtail you've been dreaming about.
yeah, well, I've got a son who's a very good cook, and um, the last time I was there, he actually took the oxtail, cooked it in a pressure cooker, flecked all the meat off it, and then made them into little cakes,
Wow.
and then just compressed them together, and then just grilled them so they had little grill marks on them.
Wow. I'm gonna try that. But I do like eating it from the bone though. But I have a good pressure cooker here, so I might just try that. I've been looking for another excuse to make oxtail again. It should be illegal having oxtail like twice in 1 week.
Well, now, do you guys? For my family, it was always with boinkies.
Yes.
Is that the way you guys had it?
Well, I didn't use like if you're referring to like boinkies you use in boinkie soup, I didn't use that this time. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
time, my recipe had leeks in it. I took the leeks out and swapped it with broccoli because I didn't have the patience to do leeks. And then I've got some green beans in there, some carrots, some blomkool,
Mm.
um, loads of flavor like chunk tomatoes and everything. I'll send you the video. It came
Yeah,
out so good.
uh, my family grew up on using um, baked beans,
Yes.
and they would put that into the oxtail.
Why
But
not?
yeah, it, just having the beans in there. But I also had it with boinkies, as in boinkie soup. Um, that
I had that loads of
according
times,
to my
but
mother, that was the way that they used to have it. Because
I made some boinkie soup the other night. The thing with boinkie soup is I always like to put it in water the night before.
yeah,
And
it's got a soak.
yeah, I didn't do that this time around. So I just went for the sort of traditional, well, not so traditional, but an adaptive version of the potjie. And if you go delve into the history of potjie, and which I was trying to teach people, is potjie started as a way for the Boers to feed a lot of people at the same time because they were traveling, resources were scarce. and there wasn't a fixed recipe to get something done. That you sort of used what you had at the time, but obviously over the years, South Africans adapted and they've sort of refined the Potjie way, so much so that they now have like 10 different Potjie course competitions around Australia every year.
But tell me, um, this bloody Australian habit of cooking on gas for barbecues. Have you got around this one yet?
Well, it's funny you say that. I've got an Australian mate. He's married to a South African friend of mine. And he says, thank you, because I actually barbecued at his birthday a few days ago on gas. And he's like, thank you for using my gas barbecue, the constant, reliable source of heat. That's what he's calling it. Look, it's not the same. It is not the same. There's a flavor. It's all about flavor. Any
Yeah,
cooking is all about flavor. The more flavor, the better. And fire gives you that flavor
yeah.
that you
I've
love.
just, I mean, I used to use. I've got one of these little cob cookers, which
Yeah.
is an Australian thing. Do you think I can find bloody briquettes here? The only briquettes I've been able to find are things that they could have used for insulation on the space shuttle, I reckon. They don't burn, they're just there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Now,
I've
Bunnings, do you have a
made
Bunnings over there?
nobody. We have
Oh,
one supermarket.
oh, Bunnings over here sells great, like thick, hard redwood, I think it is.
Yeah.
But that thing makes really good coal. But if you're in
So
Perth, you can get Rooikrans.
I can get I've got Shiok here on my own place. And that makes good cooler. But you've
Yes.
got a lot of patience
Yeah.
to get there.
True.
Um
Oh,
so yeah.
on that note, on the braai note, let's say goodbye.
Okay, cheerio.
Thank you
Bye
so
then.
much for your time. We'll chat again soon.
Bye then.
Bye bye.